Hello, so welcome to a new video. This is a continuation, or I'm going to be picking up where I left off on my media journaling how-to video. So if you haven't watched that, make sure to check it out. I'll leave it linked up above. And now I'm just going to go in and do just a journaling session, right? Get the rest of the spreads finished, and then do some journaling inside and get ready for next week's spread. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you would like to sit down and journal some, I'm going to go ahead and do that. Anyways, thank you so much for being here. Enjoy the video. Okay, and here we are officially switching over to voiceover. And before we jump into our first musical break, I just wanted to give a bit more context on what you're going to be watching and listening to throughout the video. Today's journaling session is going to be no cuts, real-time footage. That's going to be a little different from usual. I usually cut any long writing periods or anything that gets too repetitive to avoid things getting a bit too boring. But I also know that a lot of you might be interested in seeing how long a journaling session actually might take me. And I also posted a community post, a poll a couple of weeks ago asking whether you preferred videos that were longer with less cuts, real time, and most of you did. And so I figured that we would try it out this time and see how you guys enjoyed the more real time aspect to it. Usually a proper session can run me from 40 minutes to an hour. If it's meant to be what I call creative decompression, when I do my daily logging or any catching up, then of course those can take as little as 5 minutes, and as much as 5 hours. Oh my goodness. Oh no, not 5 hours, 2 hours, as much as 2 hours. But on average, usually, especially the sessions that I do end up recording, they'll take me about 45 minutes. And I don't tend to count those. I just have noticed that that's usually what it takes me to do the creative session. But yeah, like I mentioned at the start, this is going to be a media journaling session where I finish setting up some of the spreads that I started while filming the How to Media Journal Part 1 video. So it's just a continuation of that. I literally stopped recording one and continued recording this little session here. I'll be working throughout... I'll be working through 3 spreads, if I remember correctly, and that'll involve pasting down some of the stickers that I sized and prepared for these spreads. If you would like a pretty expansive how-to on how I ended up designing these spreads, do check out that part 1 of the media journaling video. There's a lot of details in there. If you do have any questions though, feel free to leave them down below or in the comments of that video. But yeah, this is just going to be a journaling session, and then after I finish pasting down all of the stickers and deciding what I want to do with that, then I'll go ahead and do all of my writing. And again, in this one, I'm not going to be cutting it, so it'll be real time and you guys can see exactly what the process is and how long it'll take me. If you're new here, something that I do end up doing a lot is I am very writing heavy in my spreads. I do enjoy a lot of ephemera and a lot of decoration, but I also really do enjoy writing foremost, which is interesting because for me, the act of writing is more just a form of me processing. And usually what I focus on when I'm going and flipping through these spreads, I'm usually just looking at the pictures. So I kind of consider it like writing is something for me in the moment, and for the memory keeping aspect, for the me of the future, that's what the images are for. Because I don't necessarily want to read back on all my writing, but I do find that it gives me something to write it down. And I know a lot of people tend to not like journaling because they feel, especially the more negative emotions, they tend to feel that it'll just make them spiral and focus on that. And of course, everyone is different, but in my case, I really do need to write it down and allow myself to process and allow myself to kind of see my thoughts on paper. And like I said, I might not necessarily read them back. That's actually the case for my daily logging. I don't necessarily write that to read back. It is there for me to read back if I want to, because it is part of my memory keeping system. But really the writing aspect is for me now. And the pictures are for me whenever I'm flipping back, because that's what I enjoy looking at. That's what my eye is drawn to. So that's just a little fun little tidbit that I was thinking about the other day and wanted to share. So yeah, as I'm going to continue working on this spread, you can't see it on screen, but I am referencing a digital spread that I created. Again, check out that previous video to get a better idea of what I'm talking about. But yeah, I'm just figuring out where I want to place the stickers and deciding on that. And yeah, I guess that we can go ahead and move into the first musical break, and I'll catch you on the other end of it. So, if you're still with me, I'd love to know what your favorite flower is. Currently, where I live, we are in dandelion and daffodil season, but the lupins? Is it lupins? In Spanish, it's lupines. They're purple in this area, and they're coming out now. They tend to come out in June, which is so beautiful. I was driving a friend of mine back to their house today, and I came across the first field with them, and it's just, oh, they're so pretty. That's one of the things that I really love about where I live, is that pretty much every single month has like a designated flower, where like a designated wildflower essentially. But anyways, my question is, what is your favorite flower now? If it's changed, if it's been the same. For many years, my favorite flower was the sunflower, but right now, I think that I'm currently obsessed with dahlias. And I will say poppies. I do like poppies a lot too, but definitely dahlias are top tier for me right now. Loving them a lot, and of course loving all of the wildflowers that randomly pop up in the fields around where I live. And yeah, so just enjoying the weather lately. It's been really nice. Although now in the past couple of days, it's been a little hotter than usual, and I don't have air conditioning. I don't have aircon where I live, and that's really different. I come from South Florida, where even though it's extremely hot and disgustingly hot, there is aircon in every single house. I mean, you would have to have aircon in every single house, because if not, you'll die. But here, moving here, it doesn't get as hot, but it still gets pretty hot. And I live on a second floor, and I learned living here that heat rises, so second floors tend to be hotter than first floors. And so last year was my first year here, and I found it so funny because I would tell everyone it's really ironic that I came to move to one of the coldest places, and instead will die here of a heat stroke, because it really felt last summer that I was going to die of a heat stroke. It was so hot. And so I'm not really looking forward to that. It's already feeling a little hot. Today it was a little cooler. But yesterday was definitely pretty hot. But anyways, that's some weather talk that I always like bringing to the table, because I think that weather small talk gets a really bad reputation, and I love hearing what the weather is like where you are, and I think it's really cool to think about. So yeah, there's my little 2 cents on weather. Just to recap on what I'm doing here specifically, I am filling out the spreads for, I want to say April. I'm looking at my media journal spread right now. Yeah, it would have been the last couple of weeks of April. This is week 18. So this is the 29th to the 5th of May. Right? Yes. So right now, that's what I'm doing, is from the 29th to the 5th of May. Primarily, in terms of media, what I've been consuming is lots of One Piece. I average about 100 episodes a month, is what I've noticed. From April, the first episode of One Piece that I watched was episode 194. And the last episode of April that I watched was, I'll tell you right now, episode 293, right? So first episode of May was 294. So that's almost 100 episodes exact. And I'm pretty sure that I finished maybe a little less than 100 episodes in the month of May. But if I remember correctly, in the month of March, I think I also did 100 episodes. So last month in April, I finished let's see, did I finish Water 7 arc in April? I'm not sure if I finished Water 7 arc in April or if I finished that in May. Honestly, time is a construct that I understand less and less as the years go by. Yeah, I'm not sure. I have, at this point that I'm doing the voiceover, finished the Water 7 arc and finished the Thriller Bark arc. And here are my 2 cents on One Piece. When I first started One Piece, everyone would say that the arc that is going to emotionally destroy you is the Wano arc. Wano? The Wano arc. Wano? Wano. Wano. You know, sometimes you think you know how to say something, and then when you say it out loud, you realize that you've never heard anyone say it out loud. Well, don't hold it against me. But that arc specifically, every single time that I would hear someone talk about One Piece, they'd say, this is the arc that's going to destroy you emotionally. I have to fight with somebody, because every single arc destroys me emotionally. So, I mean, I know I technically know what happens in that arc, and of course it is going to destroy me emotionally, but like there is not an arc, a single one, that I don't end up crying to the point of a migraine. So what are you guys selling to me at this point? I mean, I'm invested. There's no going back for me, but I literally cry every single one. So what is this? Oh, you're only going to get emotionally devastated in this one arc. No. No, if you haven't watched One Piece, you're easily emotionally compromised as I am. You'll cry all the time. I literally was a mess during, honestly, like all of them. I don't think there's a single arc that has passed by that I haven't cried in. But I mean, that's not something that I'm mad at. I love crying. I say that all the time. I do love crying. I actually measure whether a piece of media is good if it makes me cry or not. And so obviously I love that it makes me cry, but it's just a funny little tidbit that I kept hearing that, but in reality, every single One Piece arc brings me to tears. So yeah, aside from One Piece, I haven't really done much else. I listen to in terms of podcasts, I listen to PBJFM, which is a podcast by Jess. For her page, it's a Patreon exclusive podcast. In April, I also listened to a few episodes of the Easy Japanese podcast, just as like hearing practice for my Japanese studies, which, sad to say, since my trip in May, I haven't really gotten back on track with Japanese studies, which is really sad, but it is what it is. Right now it's just a really really busy season, really stressful season, and I have to prioritize other things, sadly, but hopefully I'll get back into my Japanese BS soon enough. In terms of book, in April, I started reading Building a Second Brain. And let's see, did I read anything else? I think I only read a couple chapters of that, didn't get to finish. I haven't been doing very well with books lately, sadly. Again, it feels like my brain only has such a limited amount of information. And the only reason I watch a lot of One Piece, someone was mentioning on Instagram that when they saw my videos, they were really intrigued by the amount of One Piece or manga and anime that I was going through. And I agree, it is a lot that I'm going through. And at the same time, I'm saying, oh, I'm so busy, I can't do other things. One of the reasons why I can go through so much One Piece specifically is because it's, one, my lunch show, and two, a show that I put on kind of like as a body doubling thing. Because I am watching One Piece in English so that I don't have to be worried about missing subtitles. If it was something that if it was a show that I needed to be looking at because of the subtitles, then I probably wouldn't be able to get to it as quickly. But since One Piece does take a lot longer to storytell, there is certain moments that I can afford to look away or not have my full attention because things, you know, something that could take you 2 episodes will take One Piece 10 episodes, you know? So that's one of the reasons why I can consume so much One Piece so quickly. But when it comes to like things that I actually need to like use intense critical thinking skills for, don't get me wrong, I do use my critical thinking skills for One Piece because your girl loves meta. And I love going deep into like media analysis, but it's not the same as like, for example, a nonfiction book, Building a Second Brain. There's a lot of information in there that I want to make sure that I do whatchamacallit, absorb. I want to take notes, and that's another reason why I take a little bit longer to read nowadays, is because I want to like write notes when I'm reading, and I just I can't find a moment to do that. So it's sad, but that's, it is what it is. It's a TV show kind of year. It's funny because in 2022 it was definitely about books. I think I read over 100 books that year. 2023 was definitely the year of movies, and it looks like this year is going to be the year of TV shows. So it's super interesting. That's again another reason why I keep a media journal, because seeing those patterns are super interesting, kind of recognizing, oh, this year I spent more time consuming X amount of media. It's just really interesting to me. I just love it, and I think it speaks to where your headspace is as well, because obviously the headspace that you require to watch a TV show, to watch a movie, or to read a book are completely different headspaces. So I think it's like really interesting to kind of keep track of those things and see them for what they were. I also really like seeing, oh, a specific week all I watched was One Piece, right? I didn't consume any other sort of media. Or maybe one week I didn't consume but like 3 episodes of something and I read mostly that week, or I only listened to a podcast. This week I spent a lot of time in media, and next week I didn't. And so just things like that. It's information. It's like I say, everything that you write down, that you put into a physical medium, is a form of memory keeping, because everything is representative of who you are. And so even if it's something that you don't traditionally consider memory keeping, even if it's not necessarily you journaling about what specifically you did that day, something as simple as a media log can tell you so much about what you were doing, who you were that specific day. And yeah, that's just really cool to me. So I think we're gonna go ahead and just do a musical break now, because I've been talking for a long time, and I'll catch you on the flip side of it. So now we're on week 19. And in week 19, Variety entered the chat. I did end up reading a couple of chapters of Building a Second Brain, aside from the usual One Piece. And then I also ended up starting Tender is the Flesh. I read from chapter 1 to chapter 6 because my best friend Natalie, she recommended it. She was telling me how it was a book that she's read she read a couple of months ago, and she still kept thinking about it. Tender is the Flesh has been on my list for I think 2 years now. I did hear about it back in 2022 when I was in my book year, like I mentioned earlier, and I just had never gotten a chance to. I did start reading it, very much liked it. Haven't read anything else, not because it's not something that I want to read, just because I haven't read anything, sadly. But I did do that. I did do that on week 19. I also, as usual, listened to an episode of PBJFM that was released that week. Again, a Patreon exclusive podcast hosted by Jess over at Plan by Jila. And then that week, I also listened to a podcast by Fran over at Franerd. She is a artist on YouTube, so I've been following them for a very long time. I'm not sure actually what their pronouns are, but yeah, I did that. And then that was the week before I ended up going to Miami. So I don't think I fill out that one in this one. I didn't finish out decorating the spread for week 19. That's actually going to be in my next little session. So what I'm going to be doing moving forward, I had this idea after watching one of Jess's, again from Fan by Jila's, reading wrap-ups. So the way that she does her reading wrap-ups is that she will go in and she will fill out her journal where she's keeping tabs on all the books that she's read in the year by placing in the covers. So what I was thinking of doing is that I will do a media wrap up as well, because I technically am waiting to the end of the month to do my spreads. So I think I'm just going to make that a recurring thing where every month I go in and I do a massive like catching up in the media journal where I log everything, because right now I keep track of what I'm watching either in my daily log or on my notes app, because I don't always go into my media journal to update it. So I think that just picking a day to do that at the end of the month and then uploading that to YouTube, I think that's going to be a really cool video. A lot of you are here because of the media journal videos, and that makes my heart sore because I don't know if I've mentioned it here before, but the whole reason I ended up creating a YouTube video to begin with was because of media journals. I started keeping a media journal back in 2021 in one form or another, and since then I've kept one. And in the way that I was keeping a media journal in 2023, I didn't really see anyone else doing it that way. I see a lot of people keeping like journals where they're doing very artistic spreads for the show or the books, and I don't really necessarily have a bunch of time for that. Although I will say that the way that I'm doing media journaling now is more similar to that than what I started with in 2023. But really what I wanted was a log. More important to me than reviews and all that, because I'm not really an eloquent person. For me, what's important is the log and the reactions. I really love having reactions somewhere, and I really love having the log. So that was what's important to me, and I didn't really see anyone else keeping media journals in the way that I was keeping them. And you know what they say, make the type of content that you want to see. And so that's what I did. And that's really the reason why I started a YouTube channel to begin with, was because of the media journal. So a lot of people, since posting that part 1 video, have reached out about how watching that made them want to start a media journal and how they started it right away. And hearing that really just makes me so happy, because I'm so passionate about media journals. Reading journals have a lot of fame, I guess is the word. They're very popular, reading journals are, and that is definitely a type of media journal. But you don't see very often people talking about the fact that there are other forms of media that they're consuming, and you can also keep a log of that. And so obviously I'm not the only person keeping a media journal. I just couldn't find anyone who was keeping it in the same way. And it's funny because now that I'm kind of exposing this way that I journal, I'm finding more people that also keep media journals in different ways that I hadn't seen before. And it's just so interesting and so amazing and so beautiful. And I love it so much. And I just really love the community aspect of this. I mean, at this point that I'm recording the video, there's 811 of you that have subscribed to the channel. And I just wanted to stop really fast and thank you so much for being here, for choosing to watch my videos, and then not only watch them but come back time and time again to watch what I have to say and what I'm doing. And it's so nice to hear from you in the comments and on Instagram or on Substack or on Patreon. It's just, I am so grateful for the community, And yeah, it's so nice. I'm so glad that I just decided to make the YouTube channel, because I had been wanting to for many years and I just hadn't. And then ultimately that media journal situation was what gave me the push to start. And because of that, so many things have changed in just a couple of months. I mean, I started the YouTube channel in October and I've met so many amazing people since then, and I'm so grateful for all the community building that has come from creating content on this platform, and meeting all of you is just amazing. So yeah, going back into what I'm actually doing now on screen, which I haven't really talked about at all. I've already managed to set down all of my pictures on all of my spreads, all of the layouts, and so now I'm just filling in the gaps with writing and reactions, and just at this point, what I'm doing is kind of allowing the images to speak and remind me of what I wanted to talk about. That's another reason why I really love having the images, because even my memory is not the best. I have pretty terrible memory, but seeing the images really jogs back memories. And so it's one of the reasons why I really like having them. So even if I didn't necessarily remember, oh, what I watched that week, and even seeing like the log itself wouldn't really inform me unless I have like notes around it. So like seeing One Piece episode 293 doesn't really tell me, given my memory, what was happening in episode 293. But maybe what I did was I went on Pinterest and I looked for a picture that was relevant, a fan art that was relevant to the episode, and then I remember, oh, this was what was happening. And so then I'm able to react to it and kind of write about it on the media journal spread. And that's kind of like what I'm doing here. Like, for example, I'm writing about a scene that happened in the My Hero Academia volume, or rather in the My Hero Academia manga, and the reaction that some people had to it, and how I was not in agreement with that. And so I was very passionate actually about this specific scene. I'm not going to talk about it on here because it could be spoilers for anyone who watches or reads the manga, but I'm just writing about that there, and I wouldn't have remembered that if I didn't have the image that I then printed out and pasted it on. And so that's kind of like what's going on. That's kind of like the mental process behind it. And yeah, that's essentially what I'm going to be doing from now on. Again, I didn't want to cut the video because a lot of you just wanted to have the real-time footage of how long it takes me to do these things. Normally, I would have already done like 50 cuts. But we're keeping it real. We're showing you how long the writing takes me. And in terms of like images, it's really just a combination of anything that I would have downloaded in the week. So what I'll end up doing, and I talk about a bit about this also on that part 1 of the media journaling series, but what I end up doing is that as I come across fan art or memes or screenshots or artists that I follow, like for example Horikoshi specifically, he'll sometimes release sketches, or week 15 there was the Giga cover that came out. I'll save those images and then I will compile them into a weekly folder on Dropbox is what I use. And then once it's time for me to actually create the spreads, then I'll print those out. But really, that's where the images come from. They're just things that I'm compiling as I live on the internet day in and day out. And then I just organize them by week, and then they go into their respective weekly spread in the media journal. But it can be a combination of fan art and actual like official art, and it can be screenshots. I know that for week 16, which is the spread that I did actually set up on camera for that part 1 of the video, I also have a movie ticket that is on the actual spread that I pasted in from when I want to watch Dune Part 2. So really it's whatever. It's just essentially a representation, again, of things that I've saved on my phone, in the same way that you would want to print out images from your camera roll that are from your day-to-day life, because you want to avoid having them lost in the void that is your camera roll. That's the same for me with these media related images. I want to be able to have them somewhere that isn't just them being lost in the void of my camera roll. It's the same concept, just related to a different aspect of my life. In this case, it's media related, right? So yeah, that's kind of, again, another reason why I'm media journaling this way specifically right now. You can see me shaking my hand like crazy because there's a lot of writing. I really do press really hard when I'm writing, and it tends to hurt. It tends to hurt. It's a bad habit, but I've had it ever since I was little, and it's not gonna change anytime soon. So, but yeah, that's where the shaking is coming from. It's me kind of like alleviating some of the stress that I put in my hand when I'm writing. I don't know how to do anything softly. That's just, I guess, a reality that I have to I have to deal with. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and input a last musical break, and I'll catch you again on the flip side of it. Oh, just before I go, right now I'm using Fudenosuke hard tip for that lettering. I also use Pentel brush pens, and then the Tombos is what I use for my coloring coding system. So those are some of the materials that I use throughout the video as well. And then I have that Acroball pen, which is a 3-in-1 or a 4-in-1 because it has the pencil as well. And I think that's pretty much all that I use in terms of materials, aside from like the stickers that I printed and stuff. But okay, time for the musical break now. It's so funny listening back to this and hearing Suki in the background whining, because I keep thinking that it's like actually Suki behind me whining, but it's the recording. And I couldn't remember when I was recording this, but hearing her whining, it's very evident to me that I was recording the footage at night close to her feeding time, because they usually eat at around 9 o'clock. From 9 to 10 is when I give them their final plate of food. But already starting at around 8:30 p.m., Suki will start whining and asking for food. And as I'm recording the voiceover, she's like behind me and she just stopped whining. I think as I was recording the voiceover previously, you could hear her in the background on the actual voiceover instead of the footage. And it's just hilarious. If you have cats, tell me, are they as crazy about food time as mine are? Because it's honestly outstanding how punctual they are with their food time. Like, I don't understand how they can be so punctual without ever needing to use an actual clock. Like, I know that their internal clocks are on point, but it's actually scary, like a little scary how on point they are. Final thoughts on the video before we do our actual final musical break, because I did decide to add one more. I slightly underestimated the amount of time left in the video, but right now what I'm writing about is the scene, and feel free to skip ahead if you don't want any spoilers for this particular thing. I will leave the timestamps for when I stop talking about it on screen if you want to skip, but specifically this scene during the Ennie's Lobbies arc, or I don't know, is the Ennie's Lobby its own arc, or is it a sub arc in the Water 7 main arc? You know, like, those of you who have watched or read, let me know. But anyways, this little section, this little episode, or rather this scene, the emotional impact of it cannot be understated. In fact, I think I'm gonna read to you what I wrote, because I really can't talk about it enough, how important this scene with Robin is to me. Oh, it's so funny. I actually wrote the impact of this scene. Oh my god. Okay, I promise you, I did not script this. I literally wrote the first words. The impact. Oh my god, that's so funny. The impact of this scene honestly can't be overstated. That's so funny. Oh wow. So yeah, I wrote the impact of this scene honestly can't be overstated. I wrote about this in the daily log as well, but seeing Robin's life and her believing wholeheartedly that her only future was death, but then seeing the love and dedication of her crew and realizing she could live, that she could want to live, I don't think I'll ever cope. And I think it has to do also, I recently talk about this in my podcast on the Patreon. So I have a monthly podcast called Voice Notes from a Friend on Patreon, and it's very stream of consciousness. And one of the things that I talked about in April's, or rather in May's episode, was this concept of found family and the importance that it has to me. And I find myself time and time again being drawn to this trope, and I think that's one of the reasons why this scene was so impactful for me. You know, Robin all her life was alone, and finding that level of loyalty within her crew was just, it was so impactful to see. And Luffy screaming at her, "You still have one thing left to say," and her screaming at the top of her, like the voice actress, I don't know how it happened in the Japanese, because again, I'm watching it in dub, but when she screams, "I want to live, take me with you," I honestly, I'm thinking about it and getting chills. And one of the beautiful things about media, right, is applying it to yourself and finding characters that speak to you, speak to your soul, speak to your own experiences, even if it is in a fictional sense. That's why characters are so endearing. That's why we fall in love with characters. And there was so much about her that resonated, and specifically that scene, and it's just so beautiful. And honestly, it's funny to hear. I was one of those people that didn't want to watch One Piece because it was too long, and I have become one of those people that is dreading finishing it. I'm dreading getting to this time skip, and just I love it so much. I know that this isn't like technically, I'm sure not a lot of you watch One Piece, so I apologize to those of you that don't really care, but you know, I like hearing about what other people are reading and watching, even if I don't watch those. So I hope that it's not too much of a put off. But yeah, I really that scene was super impactful for me, and I love it. I love it so much. So, final remarks before the me of the actual footage comes back to talk to you. If you've made it this far, in the comments, add a media related emoji based on what is your most recent type of media that you've consumed. So, if you have most recently read a book, add a book emoji. If you have most recently watched a movie, add a movie emoji. If you most recently watched a TV show, add the TV emoji. Leave it down in the comments and let me know what it was as like a bonus. Okay? Okay, and that's going to be all for today's session. I went ahead and was able to finish writing down or journaling in this spread. This spread. This spread. This spread. And this spread. I still need to go back and figure out something for this little section here, but I'll do that at another time. And these can end up getting more stuff added to it as time passes by, but for now, that's pretty much what they look like. So thank you so much for joining me on this little journaling session. I will catch you in the next video. Bye!